Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. President Biden cheers the latest jobs report. What the numbers tell us and why Republicans say it's bad news. NTD's Iris Tao brings us more.
Speaking in a manufacturing facility in Maryland, President Biden touts the latest job numbers released on Friday.
We're proving that our best days are ahead of us, not behind us. Just look at today's jobs report. Our economy created 263,000 jobs last month. That's 10 million jobs since I've come into office.
America's employers added 263,000 jobs in September. While that's still robust, it's the lowest monthly growth since January, showing that hiring has slowed in recent months. Meanwhile, the president says
the pace of job growth is cooling while still powering our recovery forward.
And Biden also touts what he considers his legislative wins, including the Inflation Reduction Act.
Give families a little bit of breathing room. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which the name doesn't matter a lot to people, but it's going to give Medicare.
In a Friday statement, however, the Republican National Committee says Biden is, quote, completely detached from reality. It further calls the September jobs report the worst jobs report of the year, citing high inflation and the fact that the U.S. economy has now shrunk for 2 consecutive quarters, meeting an informal definition of a recession. But Biden defends the numbers and accuses Republicans of
basically arguing that good news for the economy is bad news for America.
Meanwhile, a recent report by the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas notes that most workers' real wages have failed to keep up with inflation. And just how much of that erosion is taking place will be seen when the latest inflation numbers come out next week. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
Latest job numbers were released today, exceeding expectations slightly, but still cause for concern, showing cracks in the overall economy. We're happy to have Indiana Congressman Larry Bucshon on with us to discuss. Congressman Larry Bucshon, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Congressman, the jobs numbers released today, slightly higher than expected by about 13,000 jobs. But economists reading the tea leaves see 2 consecutive months of falling totals. What do you think this means?
Well, I mean, the Biden administration policies, of course, are stymieing the economic recovery. I mean, mainly in the energy sector, honestly. They've stymied oil and gas production in the United States, causing substantial energy inflation, and that translates into the rest of the economy. So you're going to have difficulty economically if you continue to take this approach. I mean, the cost of food is up, cost of everything is up. And so, you know, you're going to have businesses that are reluctant to hire people because of rising input costs and inflation. It's just a snowball effect from, I think, you know, policies, particularly in the energy sector, that are not working.
President Biden speaking about the economy today. You represent Indiana's 8th district. Indiana being a big farming state, agriculture. What are you hearing from voters in your state? It's
the economy. It's the prices of gasoline. Even though they've come down some over the last number of months, they're still too high. The diesel prices are real high. So when you talk to farmers, you know, their input costs are way up. So you've got cost of fuel is way up, cost of fertilizer is way up because of inflation, honestly, global inflation, including inflation in the United States. And that's what people are concerned about here in Southwest Indiana. They're concerned about, you know, the economy, pocketbook issues. You know, there's a lot of jobs out there actually available for people if they have skills. And so, you know, employers, their number one issue is workforce, including at hospitals who are struggling to find nurses and other employees. So it's the economy. That's the number one issue, overriding issue in the 8th district.
Now, Congressman, the Fed has been taking aggressive steps to try to tame inflation by raising interest rates at a historic pace. Are everyday Americans feeling the impact of this yet?
Well, they're going to, and you're going to see that in home prices and things like that. I mean, once interest rates, and I don't know what they are today, they've been over 6% for a home mortgage. You know, that's going to slow the home buying marketplace. And so, yeah, there's a ripple effect all across the economy. You know, when people don't feel they have the ability to move and buy a new home, or they have enough money to go on vacation, all of those things are impacted. Everyday lives are impacted by higher interest rates. And, you know, the Fed probably honestly should have started raising interest rates a decade ago and cooled down on buying the federal government's debt a decade ago. They got behind and didn't see, of course, no one saw COVID coming, in fairness. But I think, you know, the interest rates going up this quickly are going to have a direct impact on all kinds of marketplace issues in the American economy, particularly in the home space. And we're already seeing that, you know, we're already seeing it start to slow.
Congressman, before I let you go, just real quick, how do you envision a new Congress's role or responsibility in getting America back on track?
Well, I think front and center is going to be energy. I think the energy policies of the current administration stymieing the ability to produce American energy, all the while when we're asking OPEC and now Venezuela to send energy to the United States. I think it's almost comical, honestly, that the administration feels like they can hide from the American people while they're stymieing American energy production. They're asking foreign governments to send more energy to the United States, which tells you, you know, that all the things they're saying about making advances in climate change really are partisan. Look, I believe in an all the above energy approach. I think we need to pursue all the types of energy, but this administration wants to be ideological, and it's damaging our economy. And so I think the focus of House Republicans, one of the main focuses, is going to be directly on energy. We're going to focus also on the IRS expansion, which is a ridiculous thing that has been passed by Democrats only. And we're going to try to address other things in the economy and address crime across this country. But honestly, I think energy will be front and center, American-produced energy, because that's driving inflation, driving fuel costs, and those are the things that affect everyday Americans.
Indiana Congressman Larry Bucshon, really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
And the White House is clarifying President Biden's remarks on Russia's nuclear risks. Biden on Thursday said the risk of nuclear Armageddon is at the highest level since the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. Here's White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
President comments has been very consistent. He was reinforcing what we have been saying, which is how seriously we take these threats about nuclear weapons, as we have done when the Russians have made these threats throughout the conflict. So the kind of irresponsible rhetoric we have seen is no way for the leader of a nuclear-armed state to speak, and that's what the president was making very clear about.
Jean-Pierre said that the Biden administration has not seen any reason to adjust the U.S.'s own nuclear posture. They also don't have indications Russia is preparing to use their nuclear weapons. She also added that Biden was just showing how seriously he is taking Russian President Vladimir Putin's rhetoric. President Biden's marijuana pardon. What kind of reaction is it receiving? Democrats are quick to push for more, calling to legalize the drug, while Republicans slow to react. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with more.
As the president grapples with soaring inflation, crime, and an unprecedented illegal immigration surge just 5 weeks away from midterms, Biden unexpectedly fulfills a campaign promise.
No one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana.
People who have marijuana convictions on the record won't have to report them in the future. Biden's encouraging governors to follow suit, though the pardon only applies to possessing marijuana, not to distributing it, and it does not apply to non-citizens. The drug is also now under review to determine whether to change its classification. Marijuana is now classified higher than fentanyl and methamphetamine, drugs that are driving the overdose epidemic. Advocates say it's long overdue. Democrats continue to push a bill to legalize the drug. The House passed one in April. At that time, Republican Representative Bob Good spoke with NTD on the issue.
It has a mind-altering component to it. And when you look at states where it has been legalized, the increase in addiction, dependency, homelessness, the problems that have come. And so you know it's going to, again, increase the use of marijuana products for younger people at an earlier age, obviously, increase youth addiction.
Republican leadership has largely ignored Biden's pardon, with no public statements released yet from House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, or the Republican National Committee. Senator Tom Cotton did react quickly, calling it a desperate attempt to distract from failed leadership. Democrats were quick to praise the pardon and call for more. Senator Ron Wyden wrote, A review by HHS of how cannabis is scheduled is welcome, but those of us who have been advocating for reform, we already know that a comprehensive federal solution is needed.
So, Melina, we know Democrats were working on a bill to legalize marijuana earlier this year. What's the status of this?
Yeah, Steve. So the House has already passed a bill to legalize marijuana and eliminate criminal penalties for people who possess or distribute it. That bill was passed back in April. There were 3 Republicans in the House that did join with Democrats to pass this, but all other Republicans in the House opposed it. Now, we know this is only the action that has happened in the House. The Senate would still need to act in order for any bill to get off to the White House and to be signed into law by the president. The Senate does have its own version of a bill to legalize marijuana that was introduced by Senator Cory Booker, Senator Wyden, and Senate Leader Chuck Schumer, although Schumer has not brought this bill to the floor, indicating that there isn't enough Republican support in order for him to bring it to the floor and for it to have any chance of passing. Of course, this is subject to change with midterms right around the corner in just a few weeks. If Republicans gain more seats, it could make it more difficult to garner that support needed across the aisle that Senate Leader Chuck Schumer is seeking. But if Democrats take more seats, it could make it easier to garner more support for this type of bill. So we'll have to see what the midterms bring as to whether or not this bill could have any chance of moving forward in Congress. Steve, back to you.
Melina, thank you. The Biden administration today published a sweeping set of export controls. They include a measure to cut China off from certain semiconductors made anywhere in the world with U.S. equipment. This could amount to the biggest shift in U.S. policy toward shipping technology to China since the 1990s. If effective, they could hobble China's chip manufacturing industry. American and foreign companies that use U.S. technology will have to cut off support for some of China's leading factories and chip designers. Some of the measures go into effect immediately. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at EpochTV.com.